I think our water supply, our food supply has been tainted somewhat, and it affects certain people because they still can't see that we are being conned every single day in this country. Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well and that you had a great week. To all of my house guests, come in, make yourselves at home, make yourselves comfortable. If you're passing by and you'd like to become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I'm Chez, this is Chez M0i. Welcome to my place. In this video I published back at the beginning of March this year, here's a reminder of the conclusion I had come to. And if you, as a British citizen with whom the royal family has entered a social contract, whether you realise it or not, if you don't believe that you've also been dishonoured, disrespected and dismissed, especially when it comes to what they want to tell us and what they don't want to tell us, forget about this thing of privacy, okay, because it doesn't apply, it's not uniform. If you don't believe you've been treated in the same way as Queen Elizabeth II's memory, what could potentially happen over the next few months will shake you to your core, because it's going to challenge your belief system in this structure. By now we're all well aware of how we've been duped with fake photos, fake videos and fake narratives from Kensington Palace when it comes to the Waleses. In the UK, the distinction between two of our terrestrial TV channels has always been clear to me. Almost every other weekend, Channel 5 will broadcast a documentary about the royal family, and if the subject matter is Kate, William or Charles, you can almost guarantee that the narrative will be good-natured and upbeat with a sickeningly sycophantic undertone. Conversely, if the subject matter is Harry or Meghan, as individuals or as a couple, the tone is almost always dismissive and rarely objective, further perpetuating the negative narrative that the Sussexes are the antagonists in the soap opera that is the British monarchy. By contrast, Channel 4 is quite a radical and controversial channel. It's synonymous with groundbreaking journalism and will often go where other broadcasters fear to tread. For those of you who didn't have the opportunity to watch the recent documentary, the following article will give you a much better overview, because if I do, this video is going to be unnecessarily long. This article is taken from theindependent.co.uk, published on, I believe, the 5th of November 2024. The headline reads, Charles and William face calls to dissolve private estates and back out of lucrative NHS deal. King Charles is facing calls to dissolve his lucrative private estates and refund the cash-strapped NHS after it emerged he is making millions from renting out ambulance parking spaces and substandard properties. The monarch and Prince William have sparked uproar after it was revealed they are benefiting from rental deals with public services, including the armed forces and state schools, on their private estates, the Duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall. The two estates earned the royals upwards of £50 million in the last financial year, with both being exempt from paying corporation tax or capital gains tax. Charles has been asked to reconsider an £11.4 million deal struck by the Duchy of Lancaster last year to store a fleet of electric ambulances owned by Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust in London in one of the estate's warehouses for 15 years. Campaigners described the deal as disgraceful and a money-grabbing activity which ought to be reconsidered by the King. I think it is disgraceful, actually, given the NHS is under so much pressure, for the royal family to charge for ambulance parking and other NHS uses, Dennis Reed from Silver Voices, a campaign group for elderly people, told the Daily Mail. It sounds rather like a money-grabbing activity, and I would hope, because of the publicity, there will be a rethink in the royal household. The investigation by Channel 4's Dispatches and the Sunday Times also reported last year that William's Duchy of Cornwall had charged the Navy more than £1 million since 2004 to build and use jetties and more warships on the Cornish coastline. The investigation found that the Duchy will also earn around £600,000 over the lifetime of 6 different leases agreed with local state schools. The recent revelations about the income of the Duchies have been met with calls for them to abolish their private estates altogether. The solution is quite simple: abolish the Duchies, spokesperson for Republic Graham Smith said. He added, the Dispatch's investigation shows how the Duchies are doggedly pursuing profit at every turn, at huge expense to the public and charities. The Duchies are not private property, they are state assets. Parliament allowed the royals to maintain control over these estates when other land was surrendered 3 centuries ago. It's time Parliament abandoned that arrangement. The Duchies are portfolios of land, property and assets across England and Wales, including key urban developments, historic buildings and high-quality farmland harking back to the 14th century. The Duchy of Lancaster is held in trust by the sovereign, while the Duchy of Cornwall, valued at more than £1 billion, provides an income for the heir to the throne. Charles's annual income from the Duchy of Lancaster rose by 5% to £27.4 million in 23-24, according to accounts published by the estate in July. William received an annual private income of more than £23.6 million from the Duchy of Cornwall last year, accounts showed. The income from both the duchies is separate from the taxpayer-funded sovereign grant which pays for the monarch's official duties. Neither the King nor the Prince of Wales are legally obliged to pay income tax, but both have offered to do so. Further investigations with the Mirror newspaper found that private residential properties rented out by both duchies failed to meet minimum energy efficiency requirements. Some 14% of homes leased by the Duchy of Cornwall and 13% by the Duchy of Lancaster have a performance rating of F or G, despite it being against the law for landlords to rent out properties rated below an E since 2020, the investigation reported. There is no possible justification for allowing William and Charles to control the duchies and take the profits while avoiding taxes and facing accusations of neglecting tenants, Mr. Smith said. Why is the government paying Charles and William for the use of state land? Why is the taxpayer effectively paying Charles and William over £23 million a year each? There needs to be a full inquiry and disclosure on the duchies. We need all the records laid out for everyone to see. We need to ensure all their assets are returned to the state so money can be saved and profits can be spent on local communities. It is particularly shocking that William, who claims to care about homelessness, has been accused of being a rogue landlord who leaves private tenants in fuel poverty and living in substandard homes. A Duchy of Cornwall spokesperson said William, who took over the estate upon his father's accession to the throne in 2022, was committed to an expansive transformation of the estate. They said in a statement, the Duchy of Cornwall is a private estate with a commercial imperative, which we achieve alongside our commitment to restoring the natural environment and generating positive social impact for our communities. Buckingham Palace declined to comment, but a spokesperson for the Duchy of Lancaster said it complies with all relevant UK legislation and regulatory standards applicable to its range of business activities. They added, while His Majesty the King takes a close interest in the work of the Duchy, the day-to-day management of the portfolio is the responsibility of the Council and Executive team. They added that currently over 87% of all Duchy-let properties are rated E or above, and that the remainder are either awaiting scheduled improvement works or are exempt under UK legislation. Guys, my flabber is gusted. I literally do not know how to express my feelings with regard to this whole issue. One or two of you had asked me to watch this documentary. I didn't get to do it the day it was aired because I was editing last week's video, so I watched it during the week and all I could do was shake my head and I just kept saying disgusting, disgusting, because it is disgusting. I mean, you know what I'm suspecting now? They put something in our food supply or our water supply that makes people in this country really, for want of a better word, dumb to what's going on. You literally have these people robbing us blind. Like I said in a previous video, if this were France, oh my goodness, you know that there would be rioting on the streets. There would be rioting on the streets. I've just come to the conclusion that the people who care most are the people with the least amount of power. And this is how some of us feel sometimes in the UK. We are so restricted. You can't even buy land as an ordinary citizen. It's hard for you to buy land. I can literally buy land in other parts of the world with the least amount of difficulty. But in the country of my birth, it's something that is nigh on impossible for me to do unless I have the right connections, unless I know certain people, unless I know how to navigate the bureaucracy. So when these two spout their platitudes, Charles said at his coronation, you know, trying to put himself in the shoes of Christ when he says, I have not come to be served, but to serve. You are self-serving. You are self-serving. Both of you are self-serving. And like I said, it's hard for me to articulate what I really want to say because yeah, I just have to calm myself down. I have to calm myself down because these guys are literally laughing in our faces. And the other conclusion I've drawn from this is that people are happy to be insulted. People are happy to have their intelligence insulted. As I said in a previous video, the royal family is the last bastion of the empire when Britain was most powerful. And to let go of that means Britain is finished. So, effectively, British citizens are happy to comply with this thievery under their very nose. Disgusting. So, what do you do when you, as next in line to the British throne, and your father, the current monarch, have been exposed as money-grabbing, irresponsible landlords? Information that you've been trying to conceal from the public domain for the longest time. I'll tell you what you do. You use your current foreign trip to South Africa to redirect the narrative back to the sympathy end of the spectrum and tell the world that you've had the hardest year of your life.
So, is it good? Do we want to see our royals being vulnerable?
I mean, I'm going to say absolutely. I think back to that time when it was known that the royals lived by the mantra of never complain, never explain.
Stiff upper lip.
Absolutely. And then we almost condemned the late Queen's behaviour when there wasn't enough outpouring of sympathy for Diana. And then later, the more we did see of them being vulnerable, we just felt that they were moving into a different era. Yeah. His dad and his wife have had to have cancer treatment. That is no easy thing with such a young family. Yeah. And I think what this does show is, irrespective of your background and your privilege and the money they have and the best doctors, they both have still suffered the most, harrowing experience, and they've had to come through it as a family. And yes, we want to see more vulnerable people, because we then say, well, men don't speak anymore and they don't have the courage, and there's so many male suicides. And he's doing so much good by showing that vulnerability.
Yeah. Oh, I can see Mariella's eyes just twitching just a little bit.
No, you know what? I mean, absolutely, he's had a terrible year. They've all had a terrible year. I'd say it was probably worse for his father and his wife. And of course, I feel sympathetic. But I hardly think it's like the greatest revelation or the most revealing of his emotional state to say it's been a tough year, it's been the hardest year of my life. In fact, if he didn't say that, you'd sort of think he was a total automaton. But I think we have to bear in mind that it is sort of selective emoting. And also, like last week, I don't know if any of you saw, there was this big survey in this, or a big investigation in the Sunday Times. And they talked about all of the properties around the UK, over 5,000, that the King and Prince William own as a result of bequests given in Tudor times, and the fact they own rivers and beaches, and they charge the RNL line, they charge the army, and they charge schools. They all have to pay them money.
But it was set up in the Tudor times.
Yes, I know, and they're still benefiting from it. And actually, I haven't heard Prince William. I've seen him wading in the East River in New York, but I haven't heard him talking about sewerage in our rivers, and he owns a large proportion of them. And I just think, let's not get too carried away with this being all open.
But how's he going to win? If he was talking about the sewage in the river, you'd be like, why aren't you talking about your wife? He's never going to win.
He's winning. He's in a great position. He's getting to do what he wants to do with the Earthshot Prize. How you can give out an environmental prize and not talk about the state of rivers and the sea in this
still
country?
A dad.
I think it's a good point. We want to hear about these things. But I don't think it has to be one or the other. It's they, both him and Kate support all sorts of different mental health charities. It's Movember. It's good for us to keep talking.
As I said, it's selective, though. It's chosen because it's Movember.
Well, is it? But even if it is selective, part of their job is to support charities like that.
There are some royals not doing their job. In fact,
put a spotlight.
There's a lot of royals doing the complete opposite of what their job is. So he's doing a great job.
And one of the lines that he said was, I've been sure to make sure that I've put time aside for my family and all of that, which is a message that we are continuously pumping out. It's like, yes, we can have struggles, but we can be push on and push through. And so I think it's very powerful from a royal. But I agree on everything else.
It is if
Why
you really
can't he
care
do
about
both?
the royals.
It's not.
Struggle with.
No, I think it's about. We're all talking about it in here. It's on every newspaper. It's about highlighting the whole conversation around mental health, and I think specifically to men, which is still not great at it.
Judy.
You know what? I think the reality is when you're in the public eye, when there's power involved and there's privilege and money, unfortunately, you're in this whirlwind of what is acceptable this week and what is not acceptable the next week. The reality is, like you said, at times they can't win. I'm not the biggest royalist, but I respect that that's their position. And a lot of them was born into it. There's nothing they can do. And I think at times when they don't speak, there's an issue. When they do speak, it is an issue. The reality is no matter what, people could say that we have some kind of privilege. It doesn't mean that we don't have issues off the camera. And just because they are in the roles, it doesn't mean they don't have issues off the camera. And I think we just need to remember that no matter what, they still are human.
Yep.
Yeah, they're still human. And what I really do hope is that the same way we can have that leverage to think about and that empathy to think that they're human, that they can now emphasize and have that empathy and think to themselves, wow, I'm in this position of status and power and privilege, and I've had the hardest year of my life. What about those people that don't have that structure around them, that don't have those opportunities, that don't have the privilege or all of those things open to them to be able to support them? And that's what I really hope that will happen. And we cannot take away that there's children involved in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their mum and their great-granddad.
Yeah.
You know, so I think...
And, you know, at the end of the day, it's good PR for mental health. Yes, so the King...
How are you going to do this segue?
I have got my producer reading to me now what the King has said. So the King has said that he pays His Majesty the King voluntarily pays tax on all income received from the Duchy. I was supposed to have that on a card, but I think...
Oh, no, is this my fault?
But you know what?
Buckingham Palace has declined to comment.
Nadia, that's why we love you.
Oh, my... Did any of that make any sense? Oh, dear. Anyway, right, now, another thing that the Prince talked about was his beard.
And it would seem that William's beard has become a topic of conversation all on its own. So as we stay on the subject of beards, who remembers Harry's account in Spare when William was really annoyed that their grandmother, the actual Queen, who has now passed, gave her permission for Harry to wear his beard on his wedding day? Now, if William wants to grow a beard, who on earth am I to object? My opinion about the beard itself is invalid because I have absolutely no opinion about the beard itself. However, what is concerning to me is that William appears to be having an identity crisis. His speech delivery is becoming more free-form. His attire is much more relaxed. And he seems to be trying to be a little more engaging and interactive. It looks like William really wants to be Harry's twin. They do say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, so I'm not going to knock William for trying to pivot in order to make himself more relatable. But while William is doing his utmost to deflect from the recent revelations about his secret income and make this trip to South Africa less controversial than his father's recent trip down under, unfortunately, William was unsuccessful in hiding from a little confrontation.
You have no stability here! You are not talking! Get out of here!
This photo call with South Africa's president gave me involuntary second-hand embarrassment.
Very good. These poor people with cameras, they want to shoot you and I. Not so much, no, not so much. I spend most of my time in Victoria. Hi guys. Siyaphila njani? Ewe. Now lapha eCape Town.
handshake, please, Mr. President.
Another handshake. Another handshake. And you did say indeed that you would be coming.
I did. I said I would be here.
And
here I am. 2 years later.
2 years later. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Ready now? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lamola, and this was one of our key officials, and Chief of Staff.
The Foreign Secretary here.
Of course, we are.
You know very well.
Yes, yeah.
Eddie and Patrick is with me.
Hello. Pleased to meet you, sir. Pleased to meet you. So these fellows will want us to stand again. They never get enough of us.
Always one more.
Yes. Should we sit down now?
Last handshake, please, Your Excellencies.
Last handshake, another one.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Wonderful.
As William is busy with his Earthshot project in South Africa while reaping the benefits back home from projects which are decidedly environmentally unfriendly, Harry and Meghan are busying themselves with their ongoing commitments to improve the mental and physical well-being and change the lives of current and future generations.
UNICEF. Morning, and thank you to both the Colombian and Swedish governments, the organisation, UNICEF, and the Special Representative of the Secretary-General on Ending Violence Against Children for bringing us all together today. The first ever ministerial conference on ending violence against children comes at a crucial time, and, quite frankly, should not be required. But here we are. We are at a crossroads, where the urgency to reassess and redefine our approach to protecting children has become increasingly evident. While the necessity has always been apparent, it is now time to translate that awareness into meaningful action. So we thank you all for your attention to this critical issue.
My husband and I recognize today's reality is marked by greater connectivity and advanced technology, which of course has many positives, but which also compels us to better understand how digital violence against children is manifesting itself in this age. And at the Archwell Foundation, we engage with young people, families, and experts worldwide, learning how every aspect of a child's life, from their livelihood to their physical and mental well-being, now operate within an online economy that has the power to both shape and misshape our connections.
While the online world can help develop strategies to protect children from violence, it also introduces new risks, such as from individuals who exploit gaps in outdated legal systems, which often don't account for today's digital realities. We know that supporting parents is essential in reducing digital violence against children. That's why earlier this year, we launched the Parents Network, a support network for families dealing with online harm. Through trauma-informed practices, we help parents come together to forge strong bonds, offering healing support through community with the ultimate goal of prioritizing safety at the source.
Parents from the Parents Network are sharing their personal stories about their families' experiences with you all this week. We hope their voices and message will reaffirm this room's commitment to taking a clear-eyed approach to the reality of violence targeting children in this digital age.
Now, while the world is still reacting to the results of the US presidential election earlier this week, the anti-Sussexers are convinced that as soon as he once again takes his seat in the Oval Office, Trump will seek to have Harry deported for prior substance misuse, which, may I remind you, Harry did not try to hide. House guests, allow me to apply some logic because you know me, I always have questions. Would it be fair to say that President-elect Trump will have way bigger fish to fry, such as bringing down high living costs, reducing taxes, increasing the number of jobs, tackling illegal immigration, and is not concerned about what Harry and Meghan are doing? Trump may have disdain for the couple, but it cannot be denied that Harry and Meghan are contributing to the economy by generating significant income, paying their taxes, and creating employment. While anti-Sussexers look for any opportunity to denigrate Harry, if the issue really is substance misuse, then should the same legal criteria not apply to other high-profile foreigners residing in the US, whose substance misuse is part of their daily routine? I expect that rather than focus on Harry's former misuse, American taxpayer dollars would be better spent pursuing the international drug cartels who generate millions in revenue by flooding the American market with their so-called product, the consequences of which always contribute to societal degradation and destruction. Furthermore, if Harry leaves, Meghan and their children are leaving with him, and wherever the Sussexes go, the money follows. That means they will generate income elsewhere, they will pay taxes elsewhere, and they will create employment elsewhere. As a seasoned businessman, I doubt Trump would cut off his nose to spite his face. So please, if I'm not making sense, I would really love it if you could make it make sense for me. And let's understand this very well. While certain members of the British royal family are 100% invested in the work that they do, the king-to-be, not so much.
And he was speaking in Cape Town, where our royal editor, Russell Myers, joins us now. Very good morning to you, Russell. There is a new wave of openness from Prince William, which I think we're all here for, aren't we? He's so candid with you and the other press that are there.
Yeah, good morning, Ranveer. Well, like you just said, it's not very often we hear members of the royal family talk about their feelings, certainly of the elder generation. But Prince William talking to the UK media here in Cape Town, who've been travelling with him, reporting on his Earthshot Prize Award, he gave a really candid interview to us, saying it's been dreadful. He described the last year as brutal, saying it was possibly the hardest year of my life.
Absolutely. And I think just using really sort of normal language around it and not sort of beating around the bush, I think it's a really refreshing side, isn't it, I think, to the royals at the moment. And really interesting to me as well, he sort of spoke about the responsibility of his role. And we spoke last time, didn't we, about his homelessness documentary, which I thought was fantastic. It was on ITV. But he gave a really blunt answer, didn't he, about, do you like having more responsibility? And he basically went, no. It was amazing for him to just say that.
Yeah, I mean, again, this sort of candidness is a new revelation for the royal family, and he's been very honest. He's saying that whilst he's had all this other stuff going on at home, he's had a completely new role as the Prince of Wales over the last couple of years. And what does that mean for him? We've seen him going in certainly different directions. As you touched upon, he's got his big homelessness project, Homewards, which is over the next 5 years. I've been here in Earthshot and beautiful Cape Town this week. That's a 10-year project trying to solve the world's biggest global climate crisis issues. But again, what role does he want as a statesman? We've seen him here with the President of South Africa, the Foreign Secretary David Lammy was here as well. He's definitely taking on this new statesman role. And, maybe he doesn't enjoy the responsibility. I mean, he's got 3 young children at home as well. It must be a pretty testing time, I'm sure. But it's interesting that he's opening up in this way.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I think that hasn't gone through a PR filter. He's just talking honestly, which I think is amazing, actually.
While William's going through this apparent identity crisis, trying to morph into his brother to gain more worldwide appeal, we have seen and continue to see that he is more than happy to be led and just go with the flow than become the world leader he was groomed to be from the day he was born. Guys, I have an announcement to make. The era of never complain, never explain is officially over. All because William said out loud that he's had a hard year. So now, because he said that, never complain, never explain is not a mantra anymore. Isn't it interesting when Harry and Meghan sat down with Oprah and said what they said, they were completely obliterated in the media. How can they say these things? The royal family do not share their feelings, blah, 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 blah. The excuse given for William being so candid, it's allowed now, is because he has 3 young children. Now, I guess if you have an asset portfolio worth £1 billion, from which you draw just over £23.5 million a year to survive, I suppose you are going to look at work as a chore, as something that you really don't want to do. Because really, what's motivating you to get out of bed to do anything? There are millions upon millions upon millions of fathers in the same age bracket as William who have 3 young children, maybe even more. If they're fortunate enough to be employed in the first place, they have no choice but to get up every day and go to work so that they can provide for their family. They don't have an asset portfolio of £1 billion just waiting for them. And I just think it's so disingenuous of him to just come across as, so nonchalantly just say, I've had a hard year. Okay, you've had a difficult year. I'm not walking in your shoes, William, okay? But for you to say that you've had the hardest year of your life, how about your wife? How about your dad? As Judy Love said, what about all the people who do not have what you have in terms of financial resources, 24-hour medical attention, access to high quality food to aid the recovery of your family members who are afflicted? Many people don't have access to that, but you've had the hardest year of your life. You've had the hardest year of your life, but you've managed to find time to go out drinking. You managed to find time to go out to football matches. You were not looking after your wife in terms of preparing her meals on a daily basis. I doubt that you were. Let me not say that you weren't, because I don't live with you guys, but I doubt that you were. If you want to be patted on the back for taking your children to school, you don't get a pat on the back, because that is your duty. That should not be anything extra just because you have family members that are unfortunately afflicted with a horrible disease. People that are afflicted and they are lone parents, they have no support, they have to get out of the bed and take their children to school. So while I understand that you've had a difficult year, just miss me with this hardest year of my life thing. Okay? Because it screams self-pity. And added on top of that, you don't like to work. No one really likes to work unless they really enjoy it. And it's clear that you don't enjoy what you do, because how are you just going to give a timeline to the projects that you're doing? i.e., 5 years to tackle homelessness. No, 5 years to solve homelessness, sorry. And then 10 years for Earthshot. Homelessness is not a 5-year problem. It's a perpetual problem. And it's not stagnant. It continues to grow. Climate change is not a 10-year problem. It's a perpetual problem that continues to grow. So after 5 years, after 10 years, you just want to put your feet up, because we already know that you want to be a Zoom king, i.e. work from home over Zoom. You've already told us that. The fact that William was comfortable enough to say that is because he has his press pack following him, and obviously there's been a bargain. He's, I guess been assured that they'll do favourable write-ups if he can be a bit more open. And him adopting this casual look, he can dress how he wants. He can grow his beard 6 feet long. It doesn't matter to me. But don't destroy your brother for adopting a way of life that suits him when secretly you're envious of him, because Harry is free to work how he wants. He's not restricted anymore. He can pick and choose what projects he wants to work on, and the beauty of him doing that, he gets to do it with his wife. And they are in sync. He's not told what he has to do. So he doesn't turn up to these events and these venues, these countries, with a sour look on his face, not wanting to be there. You can see the enthusiasm on Harry's face. Conversely, William, not so much. And as I said, I think our water supply, our food supply has been tainted somewhat, and it affects certain people because they still can't see that we are being conned every single day in this country. People are aware of the secret income that is not so secret anymore of William and Charles, and yet still, because William has been open, his relatable moment, all of that's been forgotten. Harry and Meghan have still not been forgiven for sitting down with Oprah and giving her an interview. They've still not been forgiven for their Netflix documentary, and Harry still has not been forgiven for his book Spare. It's not my job to tell people to wake up. I'm responsible for how I view the world, and I act accordingly. I'm too old to be manipulated. In my mid-50s, I'm too old to be manipulated by the likes of William. The type of landlord you are, leaving your tenants in fuel poverty, in mouldy dwellings, and you want to solve homelessness. Why don't you get your own house in order? Pardon the pun. Because if you can't even sort out the tenants who pay you rent, who are you to say that you're going to tackle homelessness? But as usual, the reporters, the broadcasters, oh, he did such a fantastic job. I don't understand what's wrong with people. Like I said, I'm only responsible for how I view the world. I don't blame people for going off grid, living off grid. They don't want anything to do with the system because the system is a matrix and we're all supposed to be plugged in and just accept what's going on. In the space of a week, in the same week, in fact, we've been told of the financial shenanigans that are going on behind closed doors and have now been exposed. The man told you he doesn't like to work. He's had a hard year, even though he wasn't afflicted. And now everything's gone back to normal because he's so open. This is the next king. A king that will continue to live in a bubble, because to go out into the real world and deal with real world problems is not something that he wants to do. He could just about shake hands with world leaders. The awkwardness is there for everyone to see. He's not a natural leader. He's not a natural leader. You can disagree if you want to, but the fact that he's not enthused by his job, yeah, it's not his fault that he was born into it. It's not a fault, it's just a fate of circumstance. But my argument is, if Princess Elizabeth, at the age of 25, I believe, became queen in a fully patriarchal society, still queen with 4 children, she made the commitment and she did her job completely, even up until 2 days before she passed away. In her frail state, she still worked. But you've got him, you've got William. I don't like my job. You don't have to like your job, but you are, for all intents and purposes, a public servant. You may have all the privilege, all the perks, but you still are a public servant. You label us as your subjects, but you are still there to serve us. Your dad said it at his coronation, but you are there to serve us. You can't just sit on your bum and do no work, William. It doesn't work like that, because you are receiving money through our taxes, and it escapes your notice all the time for you to actually come out and say stuff like this. Your PR team is no good. That's all I know. Your PR team is no good. You're so relaxed, you're so confident to say what you said, not understanding that there are people watching who only have one meal a day, who can't get out of bed because they are in such poor health. Many of them through no fault of their own, who don't have a financial cushion, who don't have a support network, who don't have staff. Guys, I don't know what you make of all this, but if your thoughts were provoked in any way, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and you shall catch me in the next video.